Hi everyone, welcome back to this webinar. It's great to have so many people here. I can see that people are still signing up, so are still joining into the webinar now. But we're delighted that so many are already here. For those of you who are not yet familiar with the Beam Exchange, we are a new global knowledge platform for market systems practitioners. Our goal is to improve and extend the application of market systems approaches. I'm Ashley Aarons, and I lead Beam's work on policy and practitioner learning. I'm very happy to lead you through this webinar. This is the third in a series of market systems in action we've had, which focus on the recurrent challenges programs face and emerging good practice. The previous two looked at adaptive management and working with public extension services. But to me, this webinar is particularly exciting. Working with the private sector to develop more inclusive business models and markets is so core to what we all do in one way or another. I was struck at as well in an event we organized recently in Tanzania with the Aga Khan Foundation and Gatsby Foundation, and through a case study I'm currently co-writing on the FTC Alliances program in Georgia on how much knowledge and experience and expertise there is on working with the private sector, understanding business incentives, making a value-adding offer using business-relevant language, designing an intervention with a market vision in mind. However, there are challenges as well. What do good cost shares and partnership agreements look like? How do I get data from the private sector partners? What do I do in a thin market? Perhaps most importantly, how do I scale up this intervention to transform the market? We won't address these all today, but I'm sure we will address some, as these three speakers bring significant experience and wide-ranging expertise from different roles, sectors, and geographies. I would encourage you to feel free to contact the presenters after the webinar if you have any questions or want to share something, and we will provide their email addresses at the end of the webinar. I also hope this is the start of a longer conversation. I know in particular the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation is doing some exciting work here, that Daniel will discuss shortly. In regards to webinar functionality, this event is intended to be interactive, and I would like to ask you to use the chat box to ask any questions you have. You send questions to staff in your chat box to ask questions to the presenters. We will pick these up and try to answer them during the Q&A session in the second half of the webinar. If we ask your question, we will say your name, so please include in the question if you want to be anonymous. If anything is not working technically, please use the chat box as well to contact Beam Exchange. We would also invite you to give us your feedback about this event so we can continue to improve our webinars. And we will provide you with a link to a very short survey at the end. There will also be a recording of this event so you can listen to it again and again or recommend it to your colleagues and friends. Now to our presenters. Daniel Roduner, joining us from Switzerland, has worked in the area of private sector development since the late 1990s. He is experienced in value chain development and N4P approaches. As program leader, consultant, and with a backstopping mandate to FTC, the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. He currently leads the international cooperation team at Agridea, Switzerland, and moderated the e-discussion on effective collaboration with the private sector together with Marcus Ginau from the Beam Exchange. He will highlight some of the key insights from this discussion. Susan Maina, calling from Kenya, has over 10 years experience working in economics and private sector development in Kenya. Currently, Susan is a portfolio manager with the Market Assistance Program that is being implemented by Kenyan Markets Trust and other partners. She's been involved as well in the development of private sector development thinking in Kenya and has been part of a business development services donor group that has evolved towards making markets work for the poor. Previously, she has overseen several projects funded by, amongst others, the World Bank, Ford Foundation, WWF, and Danida. And she will explore for you all how her program is improving agro-input markets in Kenya. Andrew Wilson, last but definitely not least, is a project manager and economic development specialist with a background in law, management, and agriculture. After a short career as a lobbyist in Canada, he started working for Helvetia Swiss Intercorporation in Lao PDR, before moving to the Republic of Georgia and now Bosnia and Herzegovina. And he will outline the work of MarketMakers in Bosnia and Herzegovina to transform the ICT sector. Following their presentations, we will have around 30 minutes for questions and answers. We have received some very interesting questions so far, and again I encourage everyone to ask questions to the presenters in the chat box. Now, I would like you to hand you over to Daniel.
Thank you, Ashley. My name is Daniel. Hello, everyone. I will report on an online discussion that was hosted by SDC, the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, on effective collaboration with the private sector. We had around 60 participants from all around the world that were discussing key elements for development agencies, for development programs, project staff, etc. when they engage with the private sector. They were key specific topics I would like to highlight today. Next. These four key topics we will start on the upper left, and that was the first question was why do we work, why do we engage with the private sector? The second one was then how to find the right partner, how to find the right partner from the private sector. We had a long discussion about market distortions from within our own development programs or from the outset. And the last point I'd like to highlight today is what kind of capacities are needed within development programs in order to work efficiently with the private sector. Good. I'll start with why do we work with the private sector. From the 50 or more examples we had, I think there were two common issues, and that's we work with the private sector because we expect to have more outreach, more scale, leading to more leverage of our activities, and then sustainability. When we talk about outreach or scale, we usually refer to the number of target group reached. It's, for instance, farmers having access to inputs, having access to advice, extension services, financial services, etc. So most of the projects that participated in the discussion mentioned that as the key element. We do reach more people. The reaching people is one point. The other one is that services delivered by the private sector, they tend to remain. And that's what's meant with sustainability. If an action, a service, a product is tested and valid in the market, if it's commercially viable, then it remains. That's what we meant with sustainability. I'm already going to the second point, finding the right partner. This was the key element discussed over more than 2 weeks. It seemed to be very critical to find the right partner. While we discussed whether it is better to work with small, medium-sized or even large enterprises, even multinational companies, there wasn't an agreement on this, which is clearly based on context and what you need. However, there were 6 different criteria mentioned that most of us agreed to. The first one is in relation with the first point I made. That's the potential for leverage, or the potential to reach scale. The second one is that most programs look for private sector partners that have this similar interests or common interests. The third one is the existing will, motivation, and skills of the partner. The fourth one is the potential and interest in innovation, meaning trying out new ideas, testing new products, testing new services, attracting new clients, as we often work with marginalized people or rural farmers in my case. We need private sector who wants to invest into new ideas. Then it's the fifth one. The fifth point is the capacity and the readiness to invest. Yeah? Co-investment in collaborative elements. And the sixth criteria is social and environmental concerns. Many programs, it's part of their objective is to look at social issues, at environmental issues, so they also choose a partner from the private sector that matches these concerns. in how choosing the right partner, there were two approaches mentioned. Was the tender approach? It's a call for offers where private sector can apply, or a search approach where the project was actively involved in looking for the right partner. I'm not going into more detail on this one as time is quite limited. The next element was how to deal with external market distortions. Many programs that participated in the e-discussion are working with a facilitative approach, with an M4P approach, a value chain development approach. So they bring people together, they facilitate exchange of people, etc. And they hand over very little amounts of money. They try to, I cannot say better than facilitate market change. Now when a different program comes in, or when even a public program comes in that gives out money for free, or that funds products and services that could be or were commercially viable, they distort the whole market. So what could we do as a rather small or medium-sized program that has been working for many years for building up capacities, building up new services, building up new products with the private sector, and suddenly there's the context changes. While we all shared the same problems, there was difficulties to find a lot of solutions. One thing we did not come around is we have to play along. It's a change in the context, and we have to, even if we don't agree, we have to play along. The other one is make use of these interventions. Even if these interventions, public programs, other donors programs, only have a duration of a year or two, we can still try to use the money in a meaningful way. Creation of awareness so that local organizations can have a voice and can lobby against it. And the third one, that would be to move to other markets, to leave the market to the new dynamics, to the new context, and look for a different market. Now the last and final point I'd like to address is what kind of capacities are needed. In general, there was a consent that development practitioners, both on donor and implementer level, had a lack of basic understanding on how businesses work. They had a lack of knowledge on business language. And often they have procedures that do not match the way private enterprises worked. So we were discussing a series of elements on the personal skills of staff and on procedures that need to be improved. On the personal skills, I have a list of 10-15 different elements. You can find them in our summaries. But I think the most important one is to understand business, knowing how to interact with business, and getting used to business language. On the procedure side, again, please have a look at the 10-15 different points that we worked out in our summary. What I found most important was the rigid or the inflexibility in program planning. So this brought us to a series of specific measures that we could address. For the personal skills, we could train our staff, or we could contract staff with a business background. But there's also elements on the job learning and training, and I think one of our participants mentioned that we should go and visit the private sector. We should go and visit the factories. We should go and talk to them on their ground, and not only invite them for planning meetings in some fancy hotels. This doesn't help us to understand their reality. Then when it comes to the rigid or inflexible program planning, there were several elements. I'm starting with an inception phase. I'm looking at quick pilots, looking at opportunities, and create a program framework that allows for changes. I would remind on that level for the time being, and I'm gladly hand over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Susan from Kenya, Kenya Markets Trust, which is implementing the Market Assistance Program. Next. Our presentation today is focusing on a number of issues, a number of strategies that we have employed in working and engaging the private sector. So within this presentation, I'll be going over what our objectives are as Kenya Markets Trust. We'll be looking at specifically how we are engaging with the private sector farm input providers. These would be the manufacturers and the agro-dealers. I'll be looking at the constraints in the sector, followed by what we are doing in regards to the interventions that we've developed, and then go on to how we select the market actors to partner with and how we use our facilitation approach. Next. So Kenya Markets Trust is implementing the Market Assistance Program, MAP, and our mandate is in three main areas: to make Kenya's agricultural inputs sector, the dairy, livestock and water sectors work better for the poor. And again, we're looking at transforming these sectors so that the Kenyans are more food secure, they can earn more, access more, and have better jobs, and as well have safer drinking water. We're also looking at being Kenya's leading source of information on market development, specifically looking at how to improve the livelihoods, the income of the poor at the bottom of the pyramid. So this presentation focuses on how Kenya Markets Trust is engaging with the private sector, working within the agricultural inputs sector or market system, and following our various studies to understand why farmers' productivity continues to be low, even with the a lot of concentration by big input suppliers in Kenya. We found out that the Kenyan smallholders, and smallholders here we're talking of people using 2 acres and below of land. The usage of fertilizer and improved seed and pesticide is low. In fact, from some of the studies conducted, we find that on average, farmers are using less than 50% of herbicides and pesticides, including fungicides, and these are things or issues that are really a big concern for the smallholders. Sometimes when the smallholders use these inputs, they use them incorrectly, partly because they don't have the information, partly because they have been given the wrong information. A few of them purchase soil testing or professional crop spraying services. They don't even know that these services exist. And another important issue is that some of these farmers are located in such remote locations that traveling to the areas where they could easily access services and quality inputs is a challenge. Next. And we are going on further to look at why is the market system not working? What is stopping the market from working for these poor people? What are the key issues within the system? And what we are finding is that so basically the agro-dealers are the interface between the manufacturers, suppliers of farm inputs, and the farmers. And so these particular channel, being the interface, is lacking in a number of areas. And key to this is one, ineffective outreach. They don't proactively go out there to understand the customer's needs, the farmer's needs. And in a lot of times, most of these agro dealers will just sit and expect that the farmers, know the solutions, or are coming to the shops because they know what they want. Well, that is far from the truth. There is limited bundling of information and support with sales. And what we mean here is that when a farmer goes out to purchase from the agro dealers, there is no information being provided on the particular use of a product. For example, if a farmer is going out to purchase a herbicide, there is nobody providing information proactively to this farmer on the best application. We found instances where farmers are using dirty water, and some herbicides actually, go down in value in regards to the effectiveness if clean water is not used. There is limited innovation in service provision. For example, soil testing, which is very important, very, very important in Kenya, especially because of soil acidity levels that are affecting productivity. We don't have, these agro dealers going out to really find out if farmers need, to lower the acidity levels of their soils, or to even just understand what the soil nutritional needs are. And then a common practice with this private sector and especially the retail function is the likelihood of them employing predatory sales tactics, where they look at margins per unit sold, as opposed to looking at growing their businesses on margins or based on profitability or volumes that the profits that they're getting out of volumes sold to the farmers. Next. And so looking at all this, KMT has then come up with a number of interventions, and here is our the sector strategic framework, where we are looking at ways of persuading and supporting the private sector into ensuring that there is a win-win, where they provide services at the same time, then they generate more revenue from farmers who have more incentives to buy because of the services and increased productivity. So going down at the specifics, we are working with large-scale agro dealers to improve services and the products that they are providing, mainly quality services. Input manufacturers, we are engaging with a number of key input manufacturers. These are large-scale producers or importers of farm inputs to train the retailers that they supply to on better ways of serving. This is improved retail, better ways of supporting or serving the farmers. And then we're looking at engaging with farmers cooperatives, so that they manage their input stores better in regard to the information that they are providing to the members, to the farmer members. And that would then result into a number of activities really aimed at the cooperatives and input manufacturers, training their staff on how to do this, meaning that then the agro dealers get capacity built and get a demonstration and understanding of why giving information and correct information to the farmers, why they need to go out and look for improved quality products and services for the farmers. And all this is looking at increasing the smallholders' access. Access is important for the correct information, products and services from these retailers. And that leads to increased yields, as well as an increase in the quality that the producers are churning out, which eventually leads to the increased incomes for the smallholders. And generally in Kenya, we get a situation where the food security increases. Next. So basically, we are looking at then what do we do? What are we specifically doing for the private sectors? What are these retail strategies? What are we saying? Helping the private sector, move from margin, based sales to what we are calling customer-centered, customer-focused sales retailing strategies. What are they doing? So in terms of the tactics, we look at improvement of internal business management practices, and a key one there is looking at customer service, how they receive the farmers, how they go out and educate the farmers because they value the relationships that they have with the farmers. Looking at inventory to ensure that farmers are not purchasing out of date or expired products. Look at the next tactic is supporting them to improve marketing and promotion and distribution strategies. Village agents, for example, where those farmers who are located in remote areas easily get access. They don't have to spend money, to travel to far distances, towns or urban towns to purchase quality inputs. We're looking at demo plots so that agro-dealers proactively own this process and understand, get the right incentives so that they teach the farmers, and farmers can see for themselves what a quality product means, and tied to that is even the use of these products. Then there's a bit about increasing their sales through bundling of services. Spraying services is important. We've seen instances where farmers use leaves, for example, to do spraying instead of purchasing, and when agro dealers have actually employed youths to provide commercial spraying services, farmers are actually paying for this. And so in bundling, an agro dealer then would not necessarily sell a herbicide but sell a solution, which is the spraying services to the farmers. Next. And so going right into then how do we select these private sector actors? How do we go out there and identify the right partners to work with? So we use the will skill matrix, and one of the key things then we look at in terms of the willingness, we look at if somebody is falling in the category of high will, low skill. When we look at could it be a capacity problem? Could it be that they are willing to serve the farmers, but then they don't know the how to. And so we go in there and educate them for them to understand the value of providing information and what that means for their businesses. If it is an issue of low will, low skill, then we don't necessarily engage with these partners because we find them not a good fit for our program, and we don't necessarily engage at this point. Where we are finding high will, high skill, this is, for example, where we find a player that has the right capacity. They are willing to engage, but they are not engaging, probably because of government policies. Then we start looking at then how can we influence the wider system? How can we support the wider system? Probably through lobbying, so that the market can work better for such kind of actors. And so you find that our partnership at that level is looking at bringing together such kind of actors so that they can lobby, they can have a voice to engage the government, for such issues to be addressed. Where we are finding low skill and low will, sorry, and high skill, this could be where a market actor, and perhaps I can give an example of the large-scale manufacturers where they definitely have a skill. They've been in this business for long, but they are not doing things directly related to supporting the retail function, probably because they don't have the incentives or they don't have information for them to understand that the agro dealers also don't know. And so we bring them together. We bring them together through a number of interventions to understand that there are, if the incentives are aligned, then there are opportunities and big opportunities for them to support the smallholder market. Next. So how are we tailoring our support to the agro-dealer businesses? We build a capacity when we find those partners who have a high will and they have low skill. Then we look at engaging them better. We look at helping them to be able to come out of their comfort zone, to really help them understand that there are opportunities there. We build their capacity. Working through service providers, we help, for example, the retailers, the agri-dealers, to understand or to see that if farmers, introduction of commercial spraying services, for example, that is a win for their businesses, but at the end of the day, farmers benefit more from that. We work with the different companies then to look at how to address the external obstacles that are making their businesses, not perform as they should. And when we're looking at the low skill and when we're looking at the high skill and low skill, then we look at how do we support the partners to increase, to reduce their risk while increasing their revenues or different incentives to be able to perform better. So there are a number of ways that we go out to identify these partners. And the earlier presenter talked about visiting these businesses. And for Kenya Markets Trust, what we found is most helpful is to go in there and visit these businesses so that we really understand what the constraints are. What we've realized is engaging them, talking to them, sometimes even informally, having discussions with them. We are able to understand where the incentives lie, and from there we are able to tailor-make strategies to help them come up with strategies that are able to support better the farmers. Next. So in regards to how we do this, we support the businesses in a number of ways. One is through education. Another is through training. We do mentor them. We continuously mentor these businesses. And we're talking about mentoring is what we realize is that it can definitely not be a one-off for the businesses. Sometimes when they think they've gotten it right, they'd always come back with challenges, and we're always there to help them see the opportunities past those challenges. We inform through learnings. We constantly go back to them, help them to really understand what is happening in the wider market. Together with them, we analyze the challenges. In a lot of times, we've actually found that they would come up with their own solutions. Just out of the analysis we conduct with them, then they are able to come up with own solutions. And our role then becomes that of helping them to really align that so that the solutions they're coming with are sustainable. They are solutions that are going to work for their businesses. They are solutions that are going to not cause strain to the businesses. Linkages is important. We are currently looking at ways to support the retail function to work better with the financial markets, and looking at then how do we link the two together so that the financial institutions understand the need of the retailers, without having prohibitory rates where they cannot afford, and really having the institutions tailor-make products that are workable for the retail function. We convene meetings between these agro dealers and then other key players. We convene meetings between the agro dealers and the service providers. We are currently supporting linkages between service providers and agro dealers, for example, in shop remodeling, so that their shop outlays can work better for the farmers, so that farmers are able to identify products and pick out different products in the market. Demonstration is very important for us, and for them to see that some of these things work, and for demonstration, the strategies, we are talking about a village promotion, for example. We work with them both in supporting financially, for them to see how a village promotion is done. We cost share, with them, for them to see that farmers, if services are brought closer to them, they have the money, and so long as there's that demonstration and evidence that a particular product, soil testing is important for them, then they will pay for those services. and tied to this is really persuasion and getting the key people in these businesses to understand that there are opportunities for their businesses to grow if they train their staff, if they invested in activities that are making farmers see themselves as valued customers. And so we do conduct lots of meetings where we are persuading them to see and think in the right direction in regards to improving the performance of the farmers and improving the relationships that they have with the farmers. Next. So we look at our approach in a different way. We look at it in a different way in the sense that as opposed to inviting businesses to give us proposals, one of the first things we do in regards to the process is really go out, visit these businesses and begin to engage at that level where we have informal discussions to understand where they're coming from, to understand where the incentives lie. And based on that, we narrow down where our support will come in. Then we look at if it is a will issue, we look at why the willingness is low. We look at why they don't find a particular market, a particular smallholder market important for their businesses. If it is a skill issue, then we look at how to build the capacity of the businesses and together identify what needs to be done and what role the businesses need to play in terms of building the skills at both the top level of management in these organizations and even at the lower level, the people who are interacting with the farmers day to day. Looking at, for example, the shop staff who are being trained on how to handle customers, how to handle farmers when they come in for purchases. And once we filled in, once we exactly know where they fit, where the incentives lie, then we invite them to send us proposals, and we together look at these proposals and help them to come up with the best strategies that are sustainable, that are at the end of the day going to be revenue generators, but at the same time benefiting the farmers. Because for us, it's at the end of the day ensuring that the businesses make money, but in a way that is benefiting the farmers. And with that, I come to the end of the presentation, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have. And thank you very much.
Hello, it's Andrew Wilson here. I'm the project manager for MarketMakers. I'll be talking about one of our IT interventions today called Hub 387. Next. Our project, MarketMakers, is SDC funded. It's a 4-year project in its first phase to increase labor market demand for unemployed youth in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We started in mid-2013 with a total project budget of just over 4.5 million francs. And it's implemented by a consortium including Helvetas Swiss Intercooperation and a local partner, Collective DOO, which is a company that owns the largest jobs portal in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We also have 5 regional development agencies that act as co-facilitators in our work in 3 sectors, which includes both the IT sector and the somewhat more conventional sectors that we're working in, which are food production and processing and tourism. Next. The key points to know about the IT sector is that it has been growing, but it's underperforming its competitors in neighboring countries. And the main constraint initially is the inadequate supply of skilled workers compared to the number of job openings. But other constraints include brain drain, a difficult business environment, lack of specialized services, limited support for innovation, and inadequate promotion of Bosnia as an IT destination. On the other hand, It's a very relevant and attractive sector for unemployed young people. It offers a very good potential for high-paying, secure, desirable white-collar jobs. There's very large demand from outside the country, particularly in the United States and Western Europe, for IT outsourcing from Bosnia. And it's also a very high human capital but relatively low financial capital sector. Next. While I am talking about Hub 387 today, this is only one of our 3 IT interventions. The other 2 include working with an organization called BIT Alliance, or Alliance, which is a business membership organization that we helped 6 companies get started in 2014, and which has already created a very successful IT bootcamp program and taken an active role in advocacy, and which is also now working to build a technology campus. Our 3rd intervention, which is just beginning, is promotion and facilitation of Internet communication technology investments in partnership with the American Chamber of Commerce. And this is now just getting started on facilitating a new investment in call centers and a 2nd new investment in financial process outsourcing. Next. So Hub 387's role in the market system, in their own way of thinking, is to bring together IT companies of all sizes in a shared working space of around 2,000 square meters in a modern entrepreneurial environment. It's a modern IT campus with restaurants, swimming pool, gym, recreation rooms, nothing like anything else in the country. It includes space for mid-sized companies, an IT academy for training purposes, and a space called Nest 71, which is a co-working space for startups that serves some similar purposes like a accelerator. For the companies themselves, they're interested to see that it first creates a critical mass for innovation, but also provides an entrepreneurial environment that supports trying new things, which can sometimes be a constraint here in Bosnia. It also provides in-house shared education opportunities to improve the hard and soft skills employees need for their companies to grow. It improves staff retention and reduces brain drain by offering a world-class work environment. And it helps companies collaborate on larger, more sophisticated projects than they would be able to deliver independently. So it's really a multifunctional community that exists through the activities of its members. It's not some Hub 387 structure and organization. It's really a community. Next, please. So our project involvement in this initiative initially focused on technical support for business planning, especially for the actual creation of Hub 387 and for the IT Academy that's in it. We provided limited financial support as a rent subsidy for the first companies moving in. It started at 30% for a 6-month period, and then the next 6 months it was 15%. But there was no direct subsidy from us to the Hub or the Academy or Nest 71. And the total cost was around 50,000 euros, plus about 3 months of staff and co-facilitator time. Media has been the most important route to crowding in, but this has been managed by the Hub and the companies in it on their own because they're very technically and media literate. So we facilitated crowding in by making introductions between the Hub management and those who want to replicate it or copy certain parts of it. And in one case, this has included dealing with local governments. And the total cost of our crowding in activities so far is really limited, only around 3,000 euros, plus a few weeks of staff and co-facilitator time, but we'll invest a bit more time in this in the future. Next. The results of Hub 387 at Hub 387 itself, in its single original location, are something we're quite happy with. Companies are very satisfied with the benefits that they are receiving by being members here, and are, according to our measurement, are growing faster. Some have even grown so fast that they've had to leave the physical space and move to another building while still maintaining their activities within the hub. They've therefore announced almost 5 million Swiss francs of investments in various types of real estate development and other expansion investments in 2014-15 to support this growth. We've seen 142 jobs, good quality jobs, created in 2014, and we're predicting that it will create 300 jobs per year, approximately, in the Sarajevo region from 2015 through 2017, although this may be a little lower this year and higher in 2017. We've seen industry-led private training double, and we are very happy with that, but we're seeing also unexpectedly large numbers of other business services resulting, particularly, meetups on new programming languages, things supporting agile project management, and so on. Next. The thing that we're most excited about of all, though, is the network of similar hubs or existing organizations that are copying what's been going on in Hub 387, and this happening within a very limited time period of 18 months. There's very high interest for these sorts of initiatives, and it's come through 3 routes. First, as you see on this slide, within Bosnia, we have, Bosnia and Herzegovina, pardon, we have 4 different places where we are aware of similar initiatives inspired by the original hub in Sarajevo. And those are in Banja Luka, which is the capital of the Serbian area, but also in smaller places such as Sazin, Tuzla, and Mostar. The first route that this has happened has been franchising. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But what we've seen is that the second route for expansion has been that the companies from this hub in Sarajevo have started similar hubs in the towns of Sazin and Tuzla. And they've adapted the model to also incorporate starting their own branch of companies there. And this is probably the most promising adaptation of the original business model that we worked out with the first entrepreneur, Edin Sarajevic. And while this might seem like something that would be a threat to the original entrepreneur, he sees it as adding spokes to his hub, so that we have a hub and spoke model that strengthens his hub. The third route to expansion is copying by existing institutions, and this is particularly important in Banja Luka and Mostar, but also in Tuzla, where there's actually 2 things happening. And this has been mostly relevant to IT training aspects of Hub 387. And this has given the original hub and its management a new opportunity to move up the value chain. And again, rather than finding this to be a threat to themselves, they now have begun advising on management and development of IT hubs and IT training programs for these other institutions, providing specialized trainings and professional services, and organizing professors from within Europe and North America. And they consider that all of this also raises the profile of their own hub and of Bosnia in general. Next. Originally, I mentioned the first route to expansion was franchising. And what we've seen so far is that this gentleman, this American Bosnian, Edin Sarajevic, he's already started a franchise hub with some partners in Zagreb and is in negotiations in Belgrade. There's also some work and some options for this to expand to Pristina in Kosovo and Tirana in Albania, and partnerships are being developed there. But this also, for large cities, seems to have some advantages, such as the wholesale transfer of knowledge and experience, and of course some opportunities for economies of scale. So, next. In summary, I'd like to just say that some of our lessons learned is that we need a good leader, and the gentleman you see on your screen had a vision, and it was a substantial risk for us to believe in that vision because there was nothing there before. But even if this was a bit risky and in an unconventional field for us, that leadership made things work. Second lesson is that moving this first company up the value chain allowed us to make copying and crowding in happen much faster than it might otherwise have done because the original entrepreneur had an interest in seeing it happen. So it left space for us and gave us the mechanisms we needed to make this achieve scale. And finally, again, returning to risk. Projects need to take measured risks, just like businesses do. It's part of how do we need to interact with businesses. And when I say measured, it means you need to understand both the risk and the reward and be ready to jump when the risk justifies it. Next. Final slide is just some places you can go if you want to find more information on any of this. This is a very short version of things, but these organizations are very good at documenting everything they do. So please visit these websites.
Thanks very much, and thanks for all those really amazing presentations. I feel like we've learned so much, and we've seen all these questions coming in. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time, so I'll end the webinar in a little bit by saying how we'll take some of the questions outside of the webinar. But I think definitely we have some time for maybe some questions now. Anyone feel free to send some questions in now. In particular, thanks to Lorenz and the Prime team in Ethiopia, who have really been sending in quite a lot of exciting questions. First of all, we have a couple of people in the room in London, and see if there's any kind of questions or comments from here.
Hi, this is Will from Mercy Corps. So for us, we think obviously it's good to see the focus on the process of picking the right partner. That's obviously really important. And often it's identifying the correct wheel more than the skill that we find really challenging. Particularly because as agencies, we can really influence, we can really motivate businesses to be whether to invest, whether they think there is a market opportunity. And also the reality is that over time that wheel can change. So a business might be motivated at the beginning and then their interest drops off over time, they lose interest, or maybe they're not getting as much return as they expect. So I wonder maybe, Susan, because you probably work with quite a lot of businesses, what's your experience of the process of dealing with businesses that fail? Do you try and learn from those businesses, from that experience?
Sorry, could you ask your question again?
Okay, I'll keep it simple this time. So do you try and learn from the businesses that you partner with, but where that partnership fails or isn't effective?
Yes, we do. We do, and for us, as we start our relationships with these businesses, we are very keen to find, to track how the relationship is going. Sometimes we have tried to salvage a relationship, before it fails, because we realize that sometimes what can easily lead to a private sector losing interest is if they find that perhaps a strategy is straining them or not working, and what we encourage them is to really engage and then to feel free to talk to us when they feel a strategy is not working. And so internally what we've done is really trained ourselves to make sure that if a strategy has not worked, we take responsibility for that, and we do not at all blame the private sector for a failed strategy. We come back and really look at what did not go right, but constantly making sure that the private sector is informed on what we are doing, and together we come up and try to get solutions for what is probably ailing. But that is not to say that all is smooth sailing. Some have actually dropped, but again, yes, we have a lot of learning documented on why some of these partnerships have actually not worked.
Okay, thanks so much. I don't know if anyone on the line wants to add anything to that. I'm sure, Andrew, in the environment you work in, there's a lot of high-risk enterprises.
The issue there is that you have to look at what is the potential. What's kind of like what I was trying to finish with, and accept that there will be failure. But if the risk of failure is outweighed by the potential for the success, then we go with it.
Okay, well, thanks very much. But I want to ask a few questions that came in, and thanks so much for your question as well, that came in during the webinar. So an interesting one, Kurio Wanjua from, I think, FSC Kenya asks, and I think this is for Daniel, what does one do in a case there are no private sectors in the market?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. We dealt with that also during the online discussion. There are situations where there is no, let's say, microinsurance company when there is insurance needed, or existing companies do not have the intention of developing a new service that would be needed for small-scale farmers, or where, let's say, a trading company isn't interested in changing the way they have been working for a long time. So there might not be any private company there, or the companies they do not have interest. So another list that we created during the online discussion is looking at support from development programs in order to create enterprises or to create an entrepreneurial spirit. This list includes the possibility of financing of startups, or creating evidence for a new business model. That would include that you have to develop a survey, test it, and then build numbers around it so that companies could take it up. We had a very good example from Africa. We were talking about bridging a pre-commercial gap. So there is solutions that are supposed to be commercially viable, but there is missing capacities and finances for testing it. And we also discussed that this could be a role for the development company, a development project, sorry. So the financing of a business creation goes hand in hand with capacity building. This capacity building depends a lot what is needed. Is it organizational development, administrative issues, market studies, elaboration of business plans, etc. And we can also engage in testing and piloting of innovative ideas, products and services. I just add an answer to another question. Somebody was asking about the different documents I was mentioning during my introduction. They can all be found on the beamexchange.org website.
Thanks very much. We'll share those, the presentation, the recording, and various of his key documents later on to people. Susan, a question just came in from Natalie Skerritt. There's several questions in one, and they match some of the questions we've received from other people. So she asks, one starts off deceptively simple. At what level within the private sector firms do KMT staff engage, be senior or junior? Then more importantly, how are KMT staff perceived by private sector firms? Are you seen as consultants? And what view do partners have of Kenya Market Trust incentives, motivations? Then another question came in from Lawrence Wild, talking about some government, some private sector partners often are used to working with grant givers, with different types of organizations. So what do your private sector partners think about you?
So to get your couple of questions, one is about the levels of entry when we are working with these private sectors, or the second one is about the incentives, right? And the third one is how do they perceive KMT? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so our entry is at different levels. We try as much as possible to work with the highest levels. Now there are two, because we are engaging with a number of companies and different companies. So at the large scale, companies where we are probably talking about Orbit Chemicals, Trigger Chemicals, Syngenta, then we really try to work at the highest level, because what we understand is that, of course, decision making in most of these large companies would take time. Because of the different levels, and so to make engagement faster and decision making faster, then we really try to work at that level. And again, when we are looking at engagement with the large-scale agro-dealers, the owners of these agro-dealers are usually the sole decision makers, and they are the people we engage. A lot of times we will try to get information from the staff, the lower level people, but at the end of the day, our entry is usually at the top level of these organizations. In terms of, before I answer the incentives question, in terms of how we are regarded, this has always been an interesting one for us, because our approach our facilitation approach is really about coaching and not so much about, we've tried to move away from the traditional, way of supporting businesses. And so it's more of coaching and less of financial support, and really helping the businesses to see that they can do it, that they can actually make these investments. So our financial support is really on demonstrating that strategies can work. And actually in my last slide that we didn't go through, it was actually showing how KMT has moved from the earlier phases where we'd provide support up to 70%, and we've brought that down to from 0% to 50% now in terms of support, simply because with our approach, we want to be more of showing them the way as opposed to funding them. But the biggest problem or challenge has been on how do these people see us. So we are an NGO, but we're not giving money. So that has become a very a big issue for us to address. So they do perceive us as an NGO, but we call it with a twist. We are a new sort of what NGO, where it's more about being more like consultants, which is what the direction that we want to take. But they do look at us as NGOs as opposed to seeing us as consultants.
Thanks very much. There's one more question I wanted to put out, and I was going to first of all to Andrew, but anyone can really answer that with a previous question. So Andrew, Lawrence Wild with Mercy Corps in Ethiopia asks, how do you make sure that the supported private sector partner actually delivers the intended impact on market linkages, services, and products to the target beneficiary? So how can you guarantee that private sector delivery?
ahead of time, of course, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Ahead of time, you can't guarantee things, but over time, of course, our measurement system is critical to that. And you know, this is something that we are constantly using to adapt and advise and mentor and coach the people that we are working with to make sure that things are happening that do actually give benefits. And as an example, you know, we found that some of the training is actually less relevant to job creation than internship programs, and you know, through our measurement system, and we fed that back in, and that seems to have boosted the performance of what's happening there. So good measurement connected to good thinking.
Can I open up our question to anyone else?
I'll say that, yeah, for us, it's really looking at gearing the strategies so that the strategies are seen by the private sector as, you know, strategies to support the growth of their businesses. And as such, they don't see these strategies as ways for KMT, you know, to get to the agenda of satisfying the farmers. So if a strategy is perceived as, you know, one that is going to grow their businesses, and they can see the strategy, you know, meeting the needs of their businesses and at the same time encouraging farmers, then they will continue. The delivery is guaranteed. But yes, we constantly measure progress and correct where we find you know, the slowness in delivery.
Okay, thanks very much, and thanks to everyone. There are more questions which unfortunately we haven't got around to answer. But we will, I'm sorry, Michael, for instance, but we'll look at other ways to answer those. Thanks to everyone for your very active participation and the great questions. We really hope that you gain some insights for your work here. We will take some of those questions offline and look at how to answer them through the Beam LinkedIn group. But as I mentioned earlier, feel free to contact the presenters or myself with any specific questions or comments or suggestions. Beam will also look at other ways to take this forward. While, as mentioned, SDC will be focusing on this in their annual E&I meeting. Can I ask that you please participate as well in a short survey that you'll see here, and we will share that line later as well. I would also like to highlight some resources that further explore collaboration with the private sector. You can review summaries of the SDC E&I discussions on effective partnership with the private sector on the Beam website. You can also read more about the ICT hubs discussed in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Beam website also has a page focused on intervention and implementation, which includes some very useful guidance here. Well, there are also a great deal of resources more generally on market system approaches on the Beam website. So I would encourage you to visit it and sign up for more of these. Last but not least, I would sincerely like to thank our three presenters for introducing us to this topic and sharing their experiences with us today. We hope that you enjoyed this event, and we wish you a great rest of your day. Thanks very much.